Welcome to this explainer, everyone. Man, I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in today because we are tackling one of the most legendary, captivating mysteries in the entire history of astronomy. We're going to dive deep into the most famous SETI detection ever recorded, a literal blip in time that left scientists completely speechless and has baffled the world for nearly half a century.
Just think about this for a second. What would you actually do if the universe finally answered back? I mean, for all of human history, we've looked up at the stars and wondered, are we alone? We've listened to all this cosmic static, just hoping for a voice, a beep, any deliberate sign of intelligence. It sets up these incredible, almost terrifying stakes, doesn't it? The prospect of an extraterrestrial broadcast would literally change humanity forever. And back in 1977, we genuinely thought it might have actually happened.
All right, let's dive right into part one, the night of the wow. To really wrap our heads around this mystery, we have to transport ourselves back to August 15, 1977, at the Ohio State University's Big Ear Radio Observatory. So, picture this. The telescope is essentially this massive stationary ear designed to sweep the cosmos just by letting the Earth rotate. It was having a totally quiet, normal night. That is, until the data started rolling in. A few days after a routine scan, astronomer Jerry Amon was looking over these giant stacks of computer printouts. Usually the data just showed the quiet, boring background noise of space, mostly ones and twos. But suddenly, Amon saw this massive, anomalous spike in the data. He was so completely dumbfounded by how intense it was that he just grabbed a red pen, circled the sequence, and wrote the word "wow" right there in the margin. And just like that, the wow signal was born. Moving on to part two, decoding the 6EQJ5 mystery. Now, you might be looking at that red-circled sequence, 6EQJ5, and thinking it's just random gibberish. But trust me, it caused an absolute earthquake in the scientific community for some very specific mathematical reasons. The crucial thing to understand here is how the Big Ear actually recorded data. The computer used an alphanumeric code to track the intensity of a signal. A blank space? That just meant background noise. Numbers 1 through 9 represented low-level signals. But once the intensity hit 10, the computer started using letters, so A for 10, B for 11, and so on. Now look at the letter U, right smack in the middle of 6EQJ5. That U meant the signal was over 30 times louder than the background noise of deep space. It was, without a doubt, the highest intensity ever detected by the Big Ear telescope. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just how loud it was how long it lasted. The signal stuck around for exactly 72 seconds. And why does that number matter so much? Well, remember, the Big Ear telescope couldn't move. It totally relied on the Earth's rotation to sweep across the sky. Because of the exact width of the telescope's observation window, a fixed point in deep space would take exactly 72 seconds to pass through it. The signal built up in intensity for 36 seconds as it entered the window, peaked right at that U, and then faded out for 36 seconds as it left. It behaved exactly, and I mean exactly, how a continuous celestial object should behave. And that brilliantly illustrates the next massive piece of the puzzle, the frequency. Sitting right near 1420 MHz, this signal perfectly hit the hydrogen line. This is the exact cosmic constant that scientists theorized an intelligent alien civilization would use to communicate. It's kind of like a universal cosmic water cooler. Plus, this frequency is a strictly protected band here on Earth. International agreements completely forbid any human communications from using it, so it definitely wasn't just a rogue radio station.
Which brings us to Section 3, the comet theory debunked.
So it all seemed perfect, right? Honestly, almost too perfect. But the absolute cornerstone of the scientific method is replication. If you discover something amazing, you got to be able to find it again. And while the scientific community tried, they tried so hard, but the following decades were just defined by absolute silence. Despite massive, highly funded efforts, no one could replicate it. Right after the 1977 discovery, the Big Ear spent days sweeping that exact same spot in Sagittarius. Nothing. In 1987, researchers used the Meta-array. Nothing. In 1995, they fired up the incredibly sensitive Very Large Array in New Mexico. Still nothing. Absolute crickets. This one-off event was agonizing. A signal that strong, hitting all the criteria for an alien beacon, but never repeating, it basically became the ultimate ghost story of astrophysics.
Nature hates a vacuum, and scientists definitely do too. Over the years, people threw out all kinds of natural explanations. We even briefly wondered if space debris was bouncing Earth signals back at us, but the physics on that totally fell apart. Then, in 2017, this huge, highly publicized hypothesis came out. A researcher proposed that hydrogen clouds from two comets, comets 266P and 335P, which weren't even discovered back in '77 but happened to be crossing that exact region of the sky, had caused the signal. It made massive headlines everywhere. Mystery solved, right?
Well, not quite. I absolutely love this quote from a passionate radio astronomer on Reddit who was breaking down the comet theory. They just posted, "No, this is not how science works." And they were right. Experts completely dismissed the comet hypothesis for some incredibly sound reasons. First off, comets simply do not emit strongly enough at that 1420 MHz frequency to cause a massive spike like that. And second, actually, this is the nail in the coffin, the Big Ear telescope had two separate feed horns pointing slightly apart. Comets move slowly. It should have triggered both horns as it passed. But the WOW signal, it only entered one. So the comet theory just did not survive rigorous scientific scrutiny.
Let's move into part 4, a new scientific breakthrough.
So, let's see how this all builds up to today. Almost 50 years later, modern technology has finally allowed us to look at this old mystery with a fresh pair of eyes. Researchers led by Abel Mendez at the Planetary Habitability Laboratory launched the Arecibo WOW, or AWOW project. They meticulously dug up decades of unpublished archival SETI data from the original Ohio program. By using modern data analysis tools, stuff that simply did not exist in the 1970s, they were able to reevaluate the original WOW signal alongside thousands of other recorded signals.
And guys, what they found was a total game changer. The revised data showed the signal was even more extreme than Jerry Amon initially realized. The peak flux density, the sheer intensity of it, was actually 4 times higher than previous estimates. The location in the sky shifted slightly by about 7 arc minutes. But the biggest shocker? The frequency was revised to exactly 1420.726 MHz. This new frequency was absolutely crucial. It proved without a shadow of a doubt that the signal was a real astrophysical event, not some weird glitch on Earth, and it showed the source was moving significantly faster than scientists had originally thought.
So what natural phenomenon out in the dark could possibly cause this? The AWO team put forward the maser flare hypothesis. It goes a little something like this. Step 1. A crazy intense short-lived radiation source. Think of a magnetar, which is a highly magnetic spinning neutron star fires off a flare. Step 2. That intense radiation blasts into a surrounding freezing cold cloud of hydrogen gas. Step 3. The radiation excites the hydrogen atoms so much that it triggers a sudden, blinding maser flare. Basically, a microwave laser effect that briefly supercharges that exact hydrogen line frequency. To put it simply, imagine that hydrogen cloud is just a pitch-black room, right? And the magnetar is a sudden blinding camera flash. For exactly 72 seconds, the room is brilliantly illuminated to our telescopes, and then the flash vanishes, leaving the room totally dark once again.
Finally, let's wrap things up in Section 5, the enduring cosmic legacy.
So, what does this incredible resolution actually mean for the history of astronomy and, our endless search for meaning out there in the stars? Well, okay, the reality is, the WOW signal probably wasn't an alien greeting, but it was far from a failure. In fact, it was a profound scientific milestone. Researchers now think the WOW signal could literally be the very first recorded instance of an astronomical maser-like flare. By catching this wild, one-off radio pulse, the Big Ear Observatory might have inadvertently recorded a precursor to what we now call fast radio bursts, or FRBs. And those phenomena, they are at the absolute cutting edge of modern astrophysics today. I want to leave you with this one last provocative thought. We started out this explainer by asking what you'd do if aliens actually called. But knowing what we know now, isn't the reality of a highly dynamic, wildly explosive universe just as thrilling? I mean, out there in the dark, magnetars are blasting cold gas clouds with so much ferocity that the cosmos itself rings like a bell, right on the exact frequency we use to search for life. It's an amazing reminder that even when we don't find extraterrestrials, the natural, chaotic mechanics of our universe are utterly awe-inspiring. Keep looking up, stay curious, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today.